We now move to South Africa, where the government has hit back after President Donald Trump said the US will not invite the African country for the G20 next year, which is to be held in Miami. President Cyril Ramaphosa has described Trump's announcement as regrettable. This comes after Trump, in a social media post, repeated unfounded claims of genocide and land seizures against white Afrikaners. He also said South Africa's refusal to hand over the G20 presidency in Johannesburg led to his decision.
They are killing white people and randomly allowing their farms to be taken from them. Perhaps, worst of all, the soon-to-be out-of-business New York Times and the fake news media won't issue a word against this genocide. At the conclusion of the G20, South Africa refused to hand off the G20 presidency to a senior representative from our U.S. Embassy, who attended the closing ceremony. Therefore, at my direction, South Africa will not be receiving an invitation to the 2026 G20, which will be hosted in the great city of Miami, Florida next year.
Trump also went on to say that all payments and subsidies to South Africa will be stopped effective immediately. After Trump's announcement, a statement was released by the Presidency in Pretoria.
It is regrettable that despite the efforts and numerous attempts by President Ramaphosa and his administration to reset the diplomatic relationship with the U.S., President Trump continues to be vindictive and seek to apply punitive measures against South Africa based on misinformation and distortions about our country.
The breakdown in relations between Pretoria and Washington has worsened in recent weeks. The US administration chose to boycott Africa's first ever G20 Summit, with Trump citing human rights abuses in South Africa. And President Ramaphosa closed the ceremony in Johannesburg by banging a gavel after refusing a US plan to hand over the presidency to a more junior embassy official.
This gavel of this G20 summit formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States, where we shall see each other again next year. The summit is therefore closed.
This dispute has whipped into a full breakdown of relations, which started in the White House. What was meant to be a conversation over trade and a potential relationship reset became an ambush from Trump on the baseless white genocide claims. Trump showed Ramaphosa videos showing what he called dead white farmers. It was later revealed that the footage had actually come from Congo. And more recently, a new Senate bill on a key trade agreement between the US and African nations proposed the explicit removal of South Africa. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, provides duty-free access on close to 2,000 products. Republican Senator John Kennedy, who introduced the legislation, said AGOA should only be extended to countries that support US interests. He insisted that South Africa's geopolitical position requires re-evaluation. Expulsion from this trade program will mainly impact agricultural products. There is also the matter of 30% US tariffs imposed on South Africa that are the highest in the sub-Saharan region. The Trump administration has targeted the growing South, notably BRICS nations, with steeper tariffs because of what it calls anti-American policies. Trump is hosting the G20 in his own yard in 2026, literally the Trump National Doral in Miami. The 21-member bloc accounts for 85% of the world's GDP and two-thirds of its population. But does he have the power to bar South Africa from the G20? Looking at Russia's expulsion from what was then the G8, a unanimous decision was made by all member states. That seems unlikely in this instance, but as we have seen in this war of words and now actions, the traditional course of diplomacy appears to have gone out of the window. We will continue tracking developments relating to US-South Africa relations.
I wore the crown of a revolutionary. I promised to lift my nation. I claimed to fight imperialism. I became the very thing I warned against. I funded militias across continents. I feared my own shadow. Some called me the King of Kings. history calls me something else. The dictator. Who am I?